Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Amy Bernstein, and my book is Dreams of Songtimes. This is a really wild ride, a YA sapphic urban fantasy. It's an explosive story of love, loss, and redemption about a mermaid full of secrets, on the run, and ready to risk everything for a future she never saw coming. I promise you, it's unpredictable. You will not know what's happening from page to page. I'd love to share with readers the short prologue. So here's the beginning. I don't know exactly how I landed a short while ago at the tide's edge on this island with its blue rocks, singing sea grasses, and powdered sand. My memory's still a little fuzzy. I suspect I had help. Recall feeling the water propelling me as if I were riding atop a rocket, and I still feel the firm imprint of unseen hands guiding me. Ah, yes, a giant wall of water was about to engulf me. Then everything went black. I remember that part now. I hope I remember the rest soon. Older memories are more intact. I know who I am. Elle Gossamer, in her 20th year of life. I know I put on this wetsuit, which I'm now peeling off, to shield me from the icy river that brought me from home to the sea and then to here, wherever here is. I know what I've concealed inside the wetsuit, a family heirloom, dreams of song times. I'm counting on this book to help me understand what happens next. I'll take a moment now to feel the hot sun on my naked skin, the color of walnuts, someone once told me. Actually, my skin looks more like the blue gray of the ocean, sleek and smooth. The wind makes the grasses sing, a soft handful of notes gliding up and down the scale. The island is so small I can see the other shore, speck of land surrounded only by water as far as the eye can see. Left so completely alone, shouldn't I be terrified? I'm not. I suspect this isn't a permanent situation. Change is sweeping in with the tide. This excites me, but I worry that my future could erase my past. I'm not ready to lose the memories of those I've loved and lost, their smiles, their scents, the feel of their skin against mine. R and Per, Hey, Val, Phoebe. There's even a tiny corner of my heart reserved for Angel. If no one objects, I'd like to dwell on the past for just a bit longer. I'm not hungry or cold, just gloriously naked, sitting on a blue rock. As night falls, I'm committed to reminiscing until my heart aches. Up in the night sky, my secret constellation winks at me. I arrived at this place and at this moment in time because of secrets. Secrets have defined me for so long. I'm eager to learn who I am without all the baggage. My parents swaddled me from infancy in secrets, crooning lullabies in a strange tongue they never taught me. They tutored me to remember who I am, yet set me out into the world forbidden to speak my truth. They were trying to protect me, even if they made a mess of it. I understand that now. I have forgiven them. I also understand that when you live your whole life as a secret, falling in love will break your heart. I came of age only once I began telling the truth. And the truth is that I am a mermaid, possibly the last of my kind, and possibly also a carrier of deep and ancient magic, long forgotten and ripe for rediscovery. Love anchors me to the past. Magic may open the door to my future. I will know soon enough.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Authors. I am so thrilled you guys are joining us again in this amazing new season, new year. And I have with me the amazing Miss Amy. Hi, Madam. How are you?
Hi, DC. It is so great to be here with you. Thanks for having me on.
It's always such a blast to have you. I have so much fun in this book, urban fantasy. YA, mixture, and mermaids? We need to jump right in. I need to know, where did this idea come from? Where are you taking us?
I wrote the book on a dare to myself. I saw that writers were concocting so many kind of strange and kind of outlandish plots. I mean, in the world of fantasy, of course, anything goes, and things just seem to be getting crazier and crazier with between the princesses and the dragons and the fairies and the shapeshifters and the werewolves and the, everything in between and the vampires and on and on and well beyond. I thought, I just got to come up with something crazy. And I remember that I owned a mermaid doll with a really shimmery tail when I was a kid, and I was kind of obsessed with it. And something about that must have stuck with me because I said, I'm going to do something about a mermaid. But my mermaid, unlike a lot of mermaids in literature, she really presents as human, except for some things. So she's different, but that difference is somewhat hidden.
I like. The question is, when you got excited about this story, did you decided I'm gonna do a standalone or you're gonna go straight for a series? Where are you gonna take this story?
I only think in standalone terms, it seems. There are writers who seem so designed for series. But for me, I think the intensity of living with that story and those characters for a period of time, when I'm done, I'm kind of done. It doesn't mean I don't love it. I do. I love them. I love the story, but it just ended where it ended. And while it could lend itself to a series, I don't have plans to keep going. Unless
That
if
is
somebody wants to pay me $1 million, I'll think about it.
I like how you think. That is such a good way of going. There's nothing wrong with the standalone. You have a full story, you have this whole entire deliciousness coming together. Embrace it. When you went for YA for this, why? Because most of your books are not. What made you decide that you're going to dig into this genre?
Well, the very first book that I wrote years ago and then reissued in 2020 actually is YA. And I don't restrict myself to genre. I write the story that I really want to write. And then, of course, I have to play the game of figuring out how to categorize it. I have an ongoing battle with genre because I think can be very limiting. And I understand from a reader's perspective, it helps a reader sort of orient themselves to different kinds of books and decide if they're interested. But from a writer's perspective, it can be very limiting. Dreams of Songtimes, on the one hand, is really because the protagonist ages from 16 to 20, you can say, well, okay, this readership is pretty much kind of high school on up. But I really do think it's got a lot of adult themes in it that a lot of adult readers will appreciate who enjoy urban fantasy and are looking for something fresh. So it's YA, but it's not really only YA.
I like the crossover you bring, and it doesn't have to be just YA. I like the way you saying it. It can cross any genre as it has adult themes. So the beautiful thing about writing within those genres is that anybody at any level will pick something that actually fits their personality.
Right.
How do you plan to switch from one project to another? Like, what is your process of saying, okay, finish this book, must cleanse to pick up the other one? What do you do for that?
Usually it's exactly what you just sort of described, which is like, finish this book, must cleanse. But something happened to me in the last several months where I had started down a road on a new book and I was kind of really getting deeply into it. And then it just became so overwhelming and so challenging and so complicated that I got this other idea. And so now what I say now is, oh, I'm cheating on my book. But the cheat is, you fall in love, but then you fall more in love with somebody else. The cheating book is now almost finished. Whereas the book I cheated on is sort of stuck back in the beginning. And so I hope I go back to it, but I usually am really only completely involved in just one thing for months and months on end. My brain's not big enough to, like, really be thinking about more than one thing.
Miss Amy, you are a woman after my own soul because I've described my process the same way. Usually when I'm busy in a project or these ideas come and I'm like, I'm busy, come back later. Why did you come at this time? So it is feel like you're cheating on your characters in your books. I am actually amazed that you decided to go with the other book instead of sticking with the one you were working. What made you decide to make that leap? Because sometimes we get focused until we finish.
Because on the first book, the book that I cheated on, I really started psyching myself out in a horrible way. I started saying, I love what this is. I love what this could be. It feels too big for me. I don't know if I can do this. It's really complicated. It's 6 character points of view and alternating chapters, which is an awful lot to keep track of, and a lot of sort of entangling of time and plot that crosses the chapters. And I started making charts, and the charts got bigger and bigger, more complicated. And I kind of got to this point where I said, no, this is actually getting unhealthy in that I'm not writing. I'm getting so tangled in structure and scaffolding. And I had this other idea, and I said, let's just see if this other idea wants to grow. And it was for me, it turned out to be a really healthy decision. I think I'll go back to the other one, but I really needed to make the pivot. And I think you have to listen to yourself sometimes.
It is very, very healthy to listen to your heart and also
Yes.
to listen to the soul of the artist that's saying, tap out. We're not making art. We're making origami out of paper. Please stop. So, ah, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you realized this is not healthy. I'm not going anywhere. We need to tap out. I appreciate it. When you're getting ready to plan a project, because you kind of touch on it, are you a planner or do you just kind of write as it comes? How does that work?
That really, for me, differs book by book. So when I was writing The Potrero Complex, which is a dystopian mystery thriller, mysteries, you can't really do that seat of the pants so much because, a mystery, you've got to have clues and you have to keep the reader interested and yet not have them figure things out too soon. Or so I had to do a lot of planning for that kind of a book. For my paranormal romance, I was really led by a lot of research and a lot of the archaeology that I was studying to make the book, which really inspired the story. And so that was a little bit looser. And I kept trying to find new ways to be kind of inventive in that story and magical. And then, for Dreams of Song Times, it went through many drafts to get to the story that I finally got to. And so there was a lot of planning there, but I really tried to write from the heart.
The fact that you can switch back and forth is really fun because I know authors are very much once we start, I can't switch. I either going to be a pantser or I'm just going to get stuck in this. So it's really fun to see and being able for you to say, okay, I can do both. How long does it take you to work on each project?
Probably like you, it varies really widely. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say I think there's at least one book that I drafted like in 4 months, 4 or 5 months, which that is super fast. And I teach a lot of writing classes, and I will always be a little bit of a hypocrite and say, that's fine. That's a first draft, but you're not done. I guess I was sort of done. I think that's really fast. And I think that every writer, if you write a complete novel that quickly, you really need to go back and dig in and see what you can do better and how to make it deeper. And the more I write, because I'm working on like my sixth book now, the more I realize that even if I write a first draft quickly, there's a lot to do still. And I'm also not rushing myself now because I'm in the middle of one now. And yes, I probably will have a first complete draft within about a 5-month period, but I know already book's not done. It's just that I've told the whole story all the way through once. So I do think that time really matters when you look at draft after draft. It's not like a one and done situation.
Do you give yourself time in between drafts? Like I normally give myself 2 to 3 weeks before I pick it back up once I finish the first draft. Do you give yourself that time?
I love that question. I think I'm learning how to get better at managing the whole process with each book I write. So, for the first time, the one that I'm working on now, the one I'm almost finished with, my plan is I already know that as soon as I figure out how to get right to the end, I'm actually going to go right back in because I know things I need to change from the beginning. And I want to do that while I'm really in it. But after I do that second, like immediate pass, I'm then going to give it to beta reader for a really kind of like serious high level overview. And I know many people do that. I haven't done that before. And I think it's important to do it. If I can find somebody I really trust.
You are a very brave woman. I'm still not brave enough to have beta readers. My beta readers don't get my document probably till my editor has read it. So I usually like most people do it at the beginning, and it's very much like one of my dear friends says, it's like, "Hey, are you afraid of somebody stealing?" It's like it's so raw, people will pay it to take it back. I was like, "Really?"
Well, and I totally respect that. And I think I've had a lot of that feeling where I felt like, you know what, it's done. And either a publisher's going to want it or they're not, like it's done. But the more writers I get to know and talk to, and the more I think about my own process, what I want to do is get this thing in as good a shape as I can possibly get it as a writer, where I've really given strong consideration to structure and plot and story and how things move along and consistency and how the chapters flow. And I'm going to do all that myself. And then I'm give it to this person and say, okay, I'm not looking for you to do what we call, a developmental edit, which is you're giving detailed feedback. I'm looking you to tell me, is the story working? Are you able to suspend disbelief? Do you care about the protagonist? Are you in for the ride? Do you want to keep turning the pages? That kind of thing. So like really basic, because if I haven't done that, I'm got to go back to the drawing board. If I have done that for a beta reader, then I have more confidence to go forward and, think about the marketplace.
I like it. It is such a way of testing the story itself. You're not looking at the craft and the grammar, you're looking, does this story compel you enough to keep reading it?
Yes, exactly.
Love it. That is so awesome.
Now you'll think about a beta reader, right?
Nah, I'm still not brave enough. I'm still not brave enough. I'm like, question mark, question mark. I might change my mind, but as of right now, I was like, no, not yet. So you've mentioned 6 books. You've been writing, you've been playing around in different genres. How long have you been writing and what has changed since the day you started till now?
I had a whole career as a writer, but in the nonfiction, corporate, government, business world. So I've always been writing. I was a journalist, I was a speechwriter, lots of different things. But fiction, I knew that at some point in my life, I had to write fiction. And I think, when I wrote my first short story in second grade, that little seed was planted. And I avoided it for a long time and because I was scared. I think if you're going to write fiction, you have to have sort of the courage of your convictions. And as I got older, I said, you know what? I got one life to live, and that life is not going to go on forever. So if I want to do this, got to do this. So I started writing plays, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And that was a great way to get into fiction, but then I really found my way to novels in the last, I don't know, 8 years or so, and I've just made it a real commitment, and I'm fortunate that I can make time to do this, which is so important. So I'm making time to do it because that's my promise to myself, and that's really all any writer can give herself is a promise to do the work.
One of the things I teach to a lot of aspiring authors is to remember that writing is a very selfish journey. Nobody can do it for you. So you said making time. And I think that's such an important, precious piece because we want these books out, but we feel guilty for making the time. And that is such a huge part. What advice would you give an up and coming writer? Because you have been going through this process. You have found your flow. You have found what makes you smile. What would you tell them?
I think it begins with having faith in yourself to do the work and stick with it. You have to believe that this is who you are and this is what you want to do. I do think there needs to be a sense of compulsion. If you don't have a compulsion to write, then quite simply, you're not going to write. So if you identify that compulsion in yourself, then give yourself the permission to go exploring and don't expect too much too fast. We live in such a fast paced world and we're so goal oriented, and writing can really be the opposite of that. And so you have to give yourself time to build a writing practice, to learn the craft, to make mistakes, to let rejection flow through you and not stop you. That's so important. And above all, tell the story you want to tell.
Sometimes we try to write so hard to market that we forget that this is still your baby. You should still make a story that people want to read, but you should still be excited about it. And sometimes, I think people forget that. So amazing advice. You mentioned a little earlier what you were working on. Tell us, what can people expect? What is coming up next?
Well, there will be nothing coming up next for quite a while. Well, I have self-published and I have also been traditionally published, which for anyone listening, if they're not sure, self-publishing is self-explanatory. Traditionally published means that an independent publisher has taken your work and then you're on their timeline. They will edit the work for you and they'll put it out in their season when it's appropriate for them to do so. So it can take easily 18 to 24 months for a traditionally published book to come out, as you well know, DC. I'm going back to committing to being traditionally published. So the fact that I'm not even finished with my new book means it's probably going to be years. But in the meantime, I've got all my babies that are out there and I'd love more readers to discover them. So there's plenty of work to do on that side.
You're switching over from writing to now marketing, and you're going to give that a whole bunch of effort and a lot of energy. Are you prepared?
Well, let me ask you, don't you find that you're writing and marketing constantly at the same time? Because for me, I'm always doing both. I'm continuing to market all of my books while I'm writing a new book and, looking for positive reviews and for my work to be discovered. And I just find it's never ending. And it doesn't matter whether it's self-published or traditionally published. The author has to take up a lot of that, work.
That part is something most people don't realize is as the field has changed and people still responsible for their own marketing. What I have noticed for myself is when I'm in the middle of a book, my marketing tends to drop. Like I don't have enough energy or creativity to switch and give it both the amount that I normally do. So I give myself permission to say, okay, this is going to be a little less because you have to work on this part. So I like the fact that you're able to do them both. That's really exciting.
I'm glad you said that though, because yes, I can't always do both. And then I feel guilty. But, we only have so many hours in the day and so much energy, and you can only do what you can do. So,
Giving myself permission to understand that my creativity, you have to be creative to do both, can only be spent in so much. So right now, if I'm in the middle of a book, I have to either pre-schedule a lot of my marketing for everything else or realize that it's not going to happen. Be okay and not have that need to try to do it. So in case you're in that boat, don't feel bad. There's only so much you can do. Do what needs to get done at that point.
for sure.
Miss Amy, where can our listeners find you? Where are you located? Give us your sites. What is your favorite one?
Well, I live in lovely Baltimore, Maryland. It's an absolutely wonderful city to live in. Don't believe anything negative you may have heard about Baltimore. And I write from here, and Baltimore is often a character in my books. People can find everything about me, the books, the teaching, the book coaching, everything I do at amywrites.live. AMYWRITES, amywrites.live. My books are all available on Amazon. They're available in paperback and ebook and on Nook and in sort of all the places that you usually look for books.
I love it. So everybody listening, make sure to pick up different genres, different styles. You're going to love them all. But Miss Amy, before you leave, we need to do the lightning round. Are you ready?
Uh-oh, let's see if I've got my brain working yet today.
Don't think too hard on this. Fast and quick. Let's see how you do. Water or soda?
Water.
Nice. Sweet or sour?
That's a hard one because I go for salty.
Man, okay, you got to pick one then. Second best.
Sour.
Okay. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Nice. As long as you're not in Texas, you're fine. Ebook or print?
Oh, come on. I really read both. I love both. I don't think one is better than the other.
Fine. I'll give you both. You're probably the first person that has said both. I'm pretty impressed. Switching gears, this one's going to be a little harder. One food that will best describe your personality.
Salt and vinegar potato chips.
Oh, you must explain that. Do tell.
It's pungent. It kind of curls your tongue a little bit. It forces you to exercise willpower so you don't eat the whole bag. It's got that crunch, which is so satisfying, that it just does it for me.
I am impressed. That actually works really well. Well, madam, do you have any closing remarks for us?
Well, DC, I want to thank you again for all that you do on behalf of authors and doing this podcast. It is such a gift to all of us, and you're so generous with your own time and energy, and I really appreciate it. And I'm sure many other writers do too. And what I would just say is that, you know what? My name is not a household name, Amy Bernstein, Amy L. Bernstein, but you know what? I've got stories that people are really loving when they do find me, and I hope that more readers find their way to me.
Oh, I love it. To our listeners, make sure you are picking up her books. Make sure you are enjoying it. By the way, listeners, I have something new starting today with Miss Amy. If you're interested in actually watching the raw recordings of this in video, imagine that you get to see Miss Amy and I rocking our amazing headphones here. Make sure to join the Patreon community for podcast and lovers. That's going to be my new one. Make sure you check out the link for it. Miss Amy, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure. I can't wait to chat. I'm always excited to see what you have going on. To our viewers, make sure that you guys tune in. We have new authors coming, new exciting adventures, and I'll see you guys again next week. Bye.